until it says we're live. There we go. What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about all of your favorite adaptations of comics into streaming shows or movies. Brian is not here today, but I just recorded a video talking about Black Panther with him. You can check that up on our channel. Instead, you get my co-host from the Lastercast, my sexy friend over there, Mr. Dr. Zayas God, Danny Torkel.
Hey, I can't wait to check out yours and Brian's Black Panther review because I missed the last 15 minutes, so I'd like to know what happens.
Yes, there's this weird thing where like T'Challa's consciousness goes into the future in this thing called the Peripheral, and yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, some might say interesting, some might say kind of boring. We'll see. But we are talking about the Peripheral, episode 5. It's called What About Bob? Danny, are you a fan of the What About Bob movie?
I love What About Bob. I have it right down there on DVD. One of my favorite early 90s comedies. And I will say right off the bat, because I feel like I was the one of the two of us that was being more critical of this show, this was probably my favorite episode so far
Nice.
of the Peripheral. I thought this did a much better job of blending story, exposition, and action, and like sci-fi action. Like when you're dealing with a sci-fi series, you expect a certain level of action sequence. This felt very much like Looper. And we've made that comparison, like, in I think our first review when we talked about the first episode or two, that this felt very like we named a bunch of projects that this felt similar to, and this episode in particular felt very Looper-ish, where the hiring of a killer to kill somebody from the future calls somebody in the past to kill somebody in the past.
Right.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, and I kind of loved that whole storyline that was going on.
Yes.
Yeah, but I thought this was a very good episode after an episode that I was not a huge fan of. So this kind of gets me jacked for the rest of the series.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's definitely a shift. And I knew right off the bat that you were going to appreciate this episode because the very first scene focuses on Alita. And I know that like every episode you've kind of said, well, okay, they talk about Alita all the time. We don't know anything about her. And so we see her interact with that woman, Grace, that Charisse had killed with the bees. And looks like they had like a romantic relationship in the past. Alita comes back into Grace's life and asks Grace to take her to the Research Institute. That's that one faction that Charisse is from. And we see that inverted pyramid that was in the very first episode. And we find out that inverted pyramid is called the God Font, and that they are able to like essentially alter the past, like different timelines, and see like kind of what happens in the past. And I don't know how you felt about this, but one thing that was super interesting to me was that they were connected to those haptics that like Burton has in his arms. And essentially they're using those haptics to kind of manipulate people in groups. And that's just one of their sort of time travel experiments they're doing. Go ahead.
It also felt like they were manipulating the people of the future too. And that was Alita's main concern, and I think going to be her driving force for kind of like stealing this information that Charisse is after. Is like it made me feel like this organization is trying to create a way to control the entire population.
Right.
And she even says, like, are they doing it now? And she goes, if I said no, would you believe me? Which kind of leads you to think that, that's one of the things I love in sci-fi, when there's technology that is being used to like proliferate some type of societal breakdown or class warfare, and that's what this feels like. It was very iRobot-ish, Like I always loved in iRobot where you saw that the robots were being used as like sanitation workers. And I always felt like, well, if the sanitation worker is having their job taken away from them by a robot, then they're just going to be poor and have nothing in that society. Right. And I kind of felt that way watching this opening scene where it's like if that this research group is coming up with a way, they've created this God font that is going to, you know, dictate what certain humans are going to be able to do in the future. And I just loved that aspect of it. And I love that Alita was front and center on screen right at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's also the last time we spoke, actually, maybe 2 times ago, we spoke on the Lassercast. We talked about Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix.
Right.
And we saw Ben Barnes, who was Billy Russo in The Punisher. Right. And the actress who plays Grace was Madani in The Punisher.
Oh, and okay.
She had a relationship with Billy Russo. So, because I'm staring at her and I'm going, where do I know her from? And then I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I went through watching Pickman's Model, where it's like, oh, I just don't remember anyone but John Bernthal, who was the Punisher.
Frank Castle, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew she looked familiar. Okay, so she was in that. Okay. Yeah. And there's a lot to unpack from that one scene, but obviously the Research Institute is trying to control people and manipulate people. That's the key thing to take away from that. And Alita, wants to essentially like shut them down or like maybe expose them. And so a security guard comes in, or like a woman that works in the Research Institute.
I love that scene.
And her name's Mariel, and she, kind of is calling them out. And at the very end, Alita says, "You have very pretty eyes," which is like, okay, they're going to take her eye out, eventually too. So that's pretty fucked up. We should talk about all the Bob stuff while we're at it. So you said that reminded you a lot of Looper. I 100% agree with that. I think that the guy that played Bob did a fantastic job as a sort of like grizzled old man killer. When we first get introduced to him, he's talking to the robot version of that assassin guy, Daniel, and he's not interested in taking a job which would earn him $10 million. But then Daniel starts to threaten his daughter. And so Bob decides to take on this job. And we see him in action like right away. He's got that sonic gun. He goes into a bowling alley and he confronts someone that he thinks exposed him because he was in hiding. And he just takes out all these guys. Even though he's this old dude, he takes out all these guys in this bowling alley pretty easily. So he definitely, they establish that he's a threat like right away.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh shit, he might actually have a chance taking on these haptic powered former Marines, So were you worried that he might kill one of the main characters?
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, just because I didn't think they would kill Chloe Grace Moretz or Flynn or Burton. I didn't think they were going to kill one of those two characters this early in the season.
Yeah.
I did think he might kill the friend, especially when she for some reason wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
She was belligerently trying to be a good Samaritan to the point where I'm just you did when you're trying to be a good Samaritan and somebody says no, you've done your job. You've tried.
Yeah.
She at that point, I was just like, what are you doing? You're almost rooting for me. You're making me root for you to die at this point.
Right. If this is a horror movie, he would have chopped off her head by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know how to fix a car. You're not just dismissing me because I'm a woman. No, I'm not. I'm just fine waiting. Can you please drive away? No, I'm gonna help you no matter what. Okay, fine. Like just like zap her with the friggin' like shotgun and
Yeah, the sonic gun. Yeah. I
yeah.
thought she was going to get taken out, and then eventually, like, there's this big battle on the bridge, and Flynn and Burton's truck crashes into the side. That was really, really tense when Flynn sees the weapon, and then she's like, shoot him now. And
Mhm.
he doesn't shoot her. But that was a really tense moment. Then Bob gets shot multiple times on that bridge, but I guess he had like a vest on or something, because he's still alive and fine by the end of this
I
episode.
mean, yeah, I just rewatched John Wick this morning, and there was a lot of John Wick in that old Irish man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he just takes like a few shotgun blasts to the chest, and is
Hmm.
just like it almost felt like he was a Terminator.
Right,
Like
right.
the way
Agreed.
he just kept like sitting up, like
Right. Yeah,
like it felt like something out of the original The Terminator from 1984.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I really like that bridge sequence. And I think it's kind of interesting that like Flynn and Burton have like this secret that now they've told everybody. Like
right.
the friend on the bridge, she knows everything.
The mom.
The mom knows everything now.
Right.
And I'll see you later. My son just went to work.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, like everybody knows everything. And like, if there's people from the future trying to send past hitmen back to kill you and your family, wouldn't you try to not tell everybody that you know who you love and who you're friends with?
Right.
I also think the friend staying alive is important because they make such a big deal out of her and her husband Jasper's relationship, and Jasper is connected to the crazy uncle,
Right.
and he was also reached out to by the future.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if we're gonna go ahead and talk about what happens at the end,
Yeah.
I thought, like, if anything, now they're going to be more people.
Yeah.
Charisse is not going to stop sending people out.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Do you remember what year Looper came out?
No.
I can Google it
It
real
was
quick.
Rian Johnson, so it was like the movie that got him Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Looper came out in 2012, which is kind of interesting because the book, The Peripheral, came out in 2014. So I was thinking that maybe, William Gibson had inspired Rian Johnson, but I guess maybe it might be a little bit of the other way around.
I mean, Looper to me is one of the better standalone science fiction movies. It's not a franchise. It's its own thing. And I just love it. I love that type of science fiction movie where
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, what I like about this and Looper is that the time travel is essentially like being done by criminals. Like, it's not like there's like an artificial intelligence sending robots back or something like that, or there's like some kind of like futuristic cyborg group. It's like, no, it's just criminals trying to like scam the system, do what they can to like benefit themselves in the present. Like in Looper, it's essentially, you're getting rid of people in the past. You're taking them from the present because you can't kill them in the present. And in this, it's like sort of like, manipulating the past to see how it affects the future or what you can change in the future, but then also like tying up loose ends. And I don't know, I dig this concept a lot of like, it's not like scientists trying to stop a virus or something. It's just criminals trying to benefit themselves,
Yeah, no, I really got into this more. Like, I feel like I got into this world a lot more this episode than I did in any other episode. Like, I really liked aspects of the future that we've seen. Like, I've brought up like the architecture, and the cityscapes and some of the technology, but they've really not, like, the characters in the future, I feel like, have been kind of boring, and like we spent too much time, especially the last episode, like with these long expository conversations where with Lev, I'm
Yeah,
like
Lev, yeah.
Lev and Lev's wife, and
Yeah.
they, it just was confusing. Whereas when you just stick to like the primary characters, like really Charisse and Wilf, but
yeah,
okay, okay. My 11-year-old just ran out the door and shut the door. Oh,
okay.
I have no idea where she's going.
Oh, all right. It's all good. We're gonna wrap up pretty soon too. Anyway, it's all good. But like, you're saying that like when you focus on Flynn and Burton, it's like much more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually super excited to not see Lev this episode. I was just like, okay, good. Don't deal with that shit at all. But I was gonna say something about that. We did see a little bit with Wilf and Flynn interacting with each other, and he talked about his own childhood and like how rough his childhood was, and that he had to like kill someone when he was a kid too. So he grew up basically in the fallout from the jackpot. And I think that like one of the things that they're trying to do in the Research Institute is figure out ways to prevent something like the jackpot from happening again, and maybe even in some of these alternate timelines, which they call stubs. I think maybe they're trying to figure out if they could like prevent the jackpot from happening altogether too.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's always a pillar of science fiction, is the people from the future are trying to prevent some type of cataclysmic event. Again, Terminator, right? They're trying to prevent Judgment Day.
Right.
Even Looper, I think the whole point of Looper was to stop like this serial killer who, and then what was the other? 12 Monkeys.
Yes, the virus.
Yeah, to stop the 12 Monkeys virus. Like every movie that I've mentioned, I feel like is due for a rewatch for me. Like I'm such a big fan of these. Did you ever see Dark City?
Shit, yeah.
Dark City is maybe in my top like 20 all-time movies. It's like maybe my favorite standalone science fiction movie.
Yeah, man.
And that's like one of my go-to, like, if you've never seen this movie, then here's a movie you should go see.
Yeah.
Okay, good. My daughter's back, so I don't have to worry that she just ran away. Okay.
Good.
But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens now. I also like that they're kind of sort of building this I don't even know what you call it, intertime maybe romance between Wilf and Flynn, because Wilf like kissed her peripheral in the future. That sounds really inappropriate.
Oh man, I wish someone would kiss my peripheral.
Yeah, really. And she is like, I mean, that poor sheriff dude is like throwing himself at her.
And he's supposed to get married too.
What?
And he's supposed to get married too, that sheriff.
Yeah. And she's just like, yeah, some guy in the future kissed my robot, and I don't really have time for you right now, Sheriff Dewey.
Yeah, Sheriff Dewey. Speaking of Sheriff Dewey, man, he gets hit by a car in the end of this episode.
And it's the invisible cloaking cars that we saw that we didn't see.
Right.
That he noticed when he drove by and saw the coffee cup just kind of sitting there.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome car stunt that was done. Yeah. And they basically, whoever it was, stole the Irish guy, Bob.
Yeah.
And we don't really see what happens to him.
No, you just kind of see someone's feet come over to the cop car and take Bob. And that's
I love the interaction between Bob and the sheriff, where he's like, you're never going to leave this town. I bet you've never left this town. I have $2.5 million and it's yours if you let me go.
Right.
And I just love that idea. And like you could tell he's like trying to come up with some like macho comeback, and then the car just flips from the accident.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot more. Pretty much all my complaints about this show within the first 4 episodes were there's not enough Alita physically in the show, considering that she seems to be the main point of the show. They got that out of the way right away in like the pre-credit stuff,
right?
Which I loved. I love that opening sequence,
right?
And then there's also the that there was too much just kind of expository dialogue without any action, and this episode was super heavy on the action,
right?
And while also telling you stuff that you needed to know without it feeling like I was being dictated stuff, which I think that's like your biggest pet peeve is like when like everything stops and a character's like, let me tell you
right
everything that's going on, because I don't think you, the audience, are smart enough to understand it.
Right.
And I felt like this episode did a great job of showing but not necessarily telling.
Right.
Whereas I felt like especially episode 4 was too much telling and not enough showing.
Right.
And like even the coolest part of episode 4 was like the visuals of the jackpot, but that was just all a story being told to the audience.
Right, just telling yourself. Yeah, once again, yeah, really good point. I mean, the thing is, right, is that it's always a balancing act, because obviously they've made this complex world, and the idea of like, okay, we're gonna have time travel, but essentially it's just information being sent back in time, not people being sent back in time. And we're using virtual reality to communicate with each other. And then these people have like avatar bodies so that they can be in the future. Like that's very complex stuff. It's just it's like a balancing act of not having that exposition dump. And I agree, there was like way more action this time around. I don't remember how many episodes are all together for this season. I think there's like maybe 9 episodes so we still have 4 left. There's still quite a bit more to go.
I'm just excited to see where the show goes now, which I kind of wasn't before, and that's that's a positive. I also loved the ending of this episode. I thought this was like, if you're gonna make a climactic scene to an episode that's gonna make me tune in, this was it. Like, Chloe Grace Moretz, Flynn, basically tells Wilf, I'm in a robot body. I don't care what happens to this thing. I'm gonna go confront the woman who keeps sending people to kill me.
Right.
And she just basically walks in and has a face-to-face with Charisse, and that leads to a like peripheral fight. And they basically go hand-to-hand combat in this great sequence that ends with Flynn snapping the neck of Charisse's peripheral, which we think is Charisse's peripheral. She said it was. I mean, I can't imagine they would have killed the big bad of the show in episode 5. But that's a hell of a like stay the F away from me moment. And I thought it was a great scene for the two of them. And like the episode just ends at that moment, and I'm like, whoa, okay. Like that is like a tune in next week moment, if there ever was one.
Right. I mentioned this last recording that the book series is actually 2 books, and the cover for the second book, it's text on like a bald black woman's face. So like, the text is like 3D, and out of focus is a bald black woman's face. I don't know if it's the actress that plays Charisse and they're doing like, this is the new cover because it's a TV show now, or if that's just like the cover they always had, and that's the way the villain looks in the book, right?
Between this show and Wakanda Forever. I'm meeting my quota on bald on black women with their head shaved.
Yes.
And that was one of my favorite parts of Wakanda Forever.
Oh,
Was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like charismatic, badass, bald black women.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of them this weekend.
Oh man, God, I really loved Wakanda Forever. I got to listen to your and Brian's review of it. It was one of my favorite. I said to my son when we walked out, keep in mind not having seen the last 10 minutes, that I was like, I think I might have liked that more than the first one. He was like, no, you didn't. I was like, I think I might have. Hey.
Yeah.
But I think I actually have to watch the whole movie.
Yeah. For those of you guys that don't know, the fire alarm went off when Danny went to go see his screening of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
And so he missed it.
Yeah. The fire alarm went off like.
Oh, don't
no,
spoil
I won't
it.
spoil it. But right after the climactic scene,
yeah,
the fire alarm went off. So we were going into the end stretch of the movie.
right.
And when the fire alarm went off, the screen went off too. So I don't know what I know what happened. People online have told me, and I have Regal Unlimited, so I'll just go to the movies and watch the last 10 minutes of it. But yeah, it was frustrating. But I did love the movie.
You are making me, because I recorded with Brian, but I haven't posted it on this channel yet. So I'm going to go do that as soon as I sign off with you. I'm going to post our Wakanda Forever video. Then there's this Peripheral video. And then next Thursday or Friday, Brian and I are going to do the Andor episode 10 and Andor episode 11. So that's everything coming up on Comic Books Transformed. If you guys like listening to me and Danny talk together, we make quite a few videos on our other channel, the Lassercast. What do you got on there?
Well, tonight is the season finale of Interview with a Vampire on AMC. You and I just recorded a video of basically a season-long review to get us ready for the finale. So we're both going to watch the finale tonight, and we will talk about it tomorrow, Monday.
Yes.
And that video will be up tomorrow. Cannot wait. This has been, it's arguably my favorite show of 2022 so far. Keeping in mind that I've kind of lapsed on Star Wars and the MCU
Marvel
shows.
Yeah.
I haven't finished She-Hulk. I didn't start Andor yet. But yeah, Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire is fantastic. We did a great review of, if I don't say so myself, we did a great review of episodes 1 through 6.
Yeah.
I am going to be recording a review of Chucky episodes 4 and 5. I believe 4 and 5, which I've missed. And Chucky season 2 has just been, these last couple episodes have just been absolutely off the chart. Don Mancini's killing it on that show, and it's great. And I can't wait to talk a little bit more about it. I've been behind on that. And I think that's it as of now. With the Lassercast, I always just review a movie whenever I kind of feel like there's a movie that I want to talk about. I'll just throw up a review of it. So
yes.
Yeah.
So what Danny was saying, Brian and I are not lapsed with any of our MCU or Star Wars shows. We got reviews for all that shit on this channel here. So make sure you subscribe to the Comic Books Transformed. And then if you like Danny, if you're a fan of his reviews and stuff, then make sure you subscribe to the Lassercast too, where you can get his reviews as well. So we will be back here, though, next weekend to talk about the Peripheral, episode 6. See y'all next time.